Good morning everyone. Welcome to our webinar on Social Sign-On with OpenID Connect. My name is Evita Eldos and I will be serving as your moderator today. Before we get started, let's see how we can interact in today's webinar. What you are looking at is the attendee interface of GoToWebinar. This is rather intuitive, so no worries. The viewer window on the left allows you to see what we will share on our screen, and the control panel at the right will help you participate in today's event. If you have any questions, you may type them on the left tab. We will address them in the Q&A session towards the end. And yes, the webinar is being recorded, so everyone will receive an email with a link to view a recording of today's event. For curiosity purposes, this small webinar and the demo would be a stepping stone for our Dreamforce speaker, Abhishek Shivasubramanian, and is one topic that has made life easy for Salesforce users, connecting on the many social platforms using the many different IDs and passwords. Speaking more about Abhishek, he's one of the best mentors on the SaaSPy cloud community, a winner of the Cloud Trivia on Salesforce Spring 2013 release, developer preview, and a regular breakout session speaker on the Salesforce Developer User Group, Kerala. Adding another feather on his cap, he will be speaking at the much revered Dreamforce 2014 along with Vikas Jain, Director of Product Management at Salesforce Identity on OpenID Connect and Single Sign-On for Beginners. Before we move on to the webinar, I would like to speak a few words about us. We are Suyati Technologies, having extensive expertise in CRM. This includes cutting-edge customization to suit workflows, development of innovative apps, and seamless migration from other CRMs. Apart from being a Salesforce App Exchange partner, we are also a Microsoft Gold partner and an Acron Premier partner. Our social media tags. Please do feel free to post questions, follow us, or even tag us on the #SuyatiWebinar tag. Moving through our agenda, let's quickly see what our agenda for today is. Beginning with, what is OpenID Connect? Followed by, how does OpenID Connect work? Where Abhishek is going to take us through some use cases where OpenID Connect can fit in. Lastly, to move on through his demo, which shows social sign-on with Google. All right, Abhishek, it's all yours now.
Thank you, Abhi. That was a wonderful introduction. All right. Okay, so what is OpenID Connect? That's a basic question we need to ask here, right? So the OpenID Connect protocol is nothing but it's a very simple identity layer that is built on top of the OAuth 2.0 framework. Now, I hope most of you guys know what is OAuth 2.0 framework. It basically does, a traditional OAuth handshake that we used to call, talking to 3 different endpoints and getting back an access token. And it is with the access token that we can do additional API calls to retrieve user data. So OpenID Connect is also doing the same thing, but it can do authentication and authorization at the same time. Now, another beautiful thing about OpenID Connect is that it is REST-like, which means when you talk about REST-like, it's all around the HTTP request, HTTP responses flowing through the browser So you can actually do OpenID Connect communication through browser connectivity, and also typically the HTTP responses that you get back is, you know, the developer visualization would be like the XML or the JSON, right? So when we have this much of flexibility around HTTP requests, HTTP responses, the response body being XML and JSON, you know, that facility enables clients of all types to use OpenID Connect protocol. So basically, web-based applications can use OpenID Connect protocol. Mobile applications can also use OpenID Connect protocol. Even applications developed based on client-side scripting languages like JavaScript, jQuery, you know, you can invoke OpenID Connect protocol requests and collect responses back from all these kind of applications, right? Now, I have given a simple diagram onto the right-hand side of the slide, which basically gives a very generic, high-level picture of what OpenID Connect is basically doing and where OpenID Connect communication happens. So here, an end user is trying to get into a client application, right? So here, the client application says that, hey, hold on, the authorization needs to be done on a different authorization server. So I need to do an OAuth 2.0 call between the client application as well as, and the authorization server. And once I do the OAuth call, I will be basically getting an access token, and the client knows that because it is OpenID Connect protocol call that is happening here, the access token needs to be used to call up an user info endpoint to collect the user details that can be used for authenticating the user. For example, you can exchange the access token to the user info endpoint URL and collect back the first name, last name, and the email address of the user. Now, I believe these would be the primary information that any authorization logic would use to recheck or reconfirm that this is really a genuine user that needs to be given access into the client application. So that is what you can do with OpenID Connect, right? Now let's dive in a bit deep into the OpenID Connect protocol suite. Now here you can see the core, which basically does the OAuth calls. Collects back the access token, exchanging the access token with the user info endpoint URL to collect back the user details. So all those things happen here at the core, right? Now, the next piece in the OpenID Connect protocol suite is the discovery. So you can even discover if some of your authorization providers support OpenID Connect protocol or not. So if that authorization provider is supporting OpenID Connect protocol, you can also get all the URLs that you basically need to do a complete OpenID Connect request response cycle. So that can also be done here. Now, OpenID Connect, the best thing I like about OpenID Connect protocol is that it's to do with the dynamic client registration. So here, as you can see, the OAuth 2.0 calls happen on the fly. You get the access token even on the fly. Even the user doesn't realize that all these things are happening behind the scene. So the access token comes back. You exchange that access token with the user info endpoint URL, and you can even check if this user is really existing in your client application's identity store or not. And if that user is not there, you could auto-register that user. And you can auto-register the user mainly because you have the first name, last name, and email address, which are kind of the mandatory information which you need to register a user, right? So you can auto-register the person on the go itself, And you can, once you have registered the user, you can even use the session management piece of the OpenID Connect protocol to assign a session ID, which will allow the user to log in into the client application seamlessly. Now, as I said, the OpenID Connect protocol is basically built on top of the OAuth 2.0 framework, right? So in this diagram also, you can see that the underpinnings say that the foundation of OpenID Connect protocol is OAuth. So you have the OAuth 2.0 core, the bearer facilities, the assertions, the JSON Web Token profile facility, as well as the OAuth 2.0 responses. So again, reiterating back into the that keyword REST-like manner. Now you can see that it's all JSON Web Tokens. So it's all tokens built in a very specific generalized industry standard format, which can be split up to read the OpenID information. So you can see there is JWT, which is the JSON Web Token. You have the JSON Web Signature, the encryption facilities on the JSON Web Tokens, the JSON Web Keys, as well as you can even implement JSON Web algorithms on top of this IDs, right? Okay. Now, okay, I hope the slide, yes, fine. So the OpenID Connect. Now, how does this work? We talked a lot about how OpenID Connect works from a very general standpoint. We looked into the OpenID Connect protocol suite. What is actually the flesh inside the OpenID Connect protocol suite? Now let's try to understand from a very beginner perspective how this OpenID Connect authentication basically works. So I have an end user, basically Eve, who is trying to get into the client application. For example, she wants to communicate to Alice, right? So Alice says that, hey, Eve, I don't know you. I don't even know that you are the real or genuine Eve. So I need somebody to give a notarized referral letter saying that, okay, you are the real genuine Eve. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to redirect you into the authorization server. For example, I'm going to take you to the butler who needs to give me the notarized referral letter saying that you are the end user is really Eve. So once I get the referral letter and the key from the butler, I can let you access your locker. So this is the beauty of OpenID Connect authentication. What you get back is that notarized referral letter as well as the key for you to access. Now, if you look at OAuth 2.0 framework, what you get back is the access token. What typical client applications they do is once they do the OAuth handshake, they store this access token onto their identity store, for example, maybe a SQL database. Now, you also need to look at the security aspect of your client application. What if the identity store of your client application gets hacked? You are losing a very sensitive information called as the access token, which is nothing but your key. The user's key is getting lost if the client application gets hacked. And if the hacker gets access to the access token, which is the user's key, he can do more API calls to retrieve more user information, maybe photos, the profile details. All those things could be retrieved by the hacker using the access token. So that is maybe I won't say that as a drawback of OAuth 2.0 framework, but this is something that the client application, the development team who is actually developing the client application needs to keep in their mind. Now, with the advent of OpenID Connect protocol, the protocol itself is making the communication real, safe, and secure. What you get back is not the key. You're getting the notarized referral letter. You need to have the notarized referral letter to use that key. If you don't have the notarized referral letter, you cannot use the key. So the hacker usually won't be able to get the notarized referral letter. Now, even if hacker tries to pull out the notarized referral letter, this key has to be given to that person owning the notarized referral letter, right? So all those things will differ with the OpenID Connect's unique ID, as well as the issuer information, the issued at information. All those things will differ. So these kind of things make hacking really very difficult and even impossible to do using OpenID Connect. I hope the point is very clear out here. Okay. Okay, now let's look at some cool use cases. What all can we think on when we understand the concept of OpenID Connect protocol? Now, we can have, now the best thing is that your authorization servers can be different. It can be a third-party authorization server. So you can log into your client applications using Google as your authentication provider. You can use Amazon to log into your client application. You can even use PayPal. I hope most of you people would have seen this kind of the keyword called as social sign-on. So using OpenID Connect protocol, you can enable social sign-on in your client applications. Now, when you take this to an enterprise level, for example, you need to make an environment of your employees to have single sign-on. They don't want to keep a lot of username and passwords, a different set of username and password for one system, a different username and password for Salesforce login, a different username and password for their help desk system. So they want some kind of single sign-on facility in their enterprise. So when you have OpenID Connect providers set up in your enterprise, you can actually use this protocol to enable single sign-on as well as social sign-on, right? Okay, so here we come to the OpenID Connect hands-on demo. So for this webinar, we will be concentrating on social sign-on with Google into Salesforce. So here you should make a note that you're trying to use Google as your authorization provider, as your identity provider, and your client application or your relying party is the Salesforce. Okay, so let's look into how you can configure this real simple in Salesforce. Okay. All right, so I'm just waiting for the screen to refresh. Okay, so here we are into Salesforce. This is my developer account in Salesforce. Now, you need to make sure in Salesforce when you try to set up anything around OpenID Connect or single sign-on practices, you need to make sure that your Salesforce Developer Edition has a domain URL set, right? So this is what you need to see. I have highlighted the URL out here. Your typical Salesforce login should not be looking like ap1.salesforce.com, na2.salesforce.com. It doesn't work, right? So you need to set this URL, and where do you set it? You need to set it at my domain. Oops. Okay. My domain. You just need to search here for my domain. And you can go into my domain, and here if you scroll down, you will be able to see that the my domain is set as abhisheksubu-dev-ed.my.salesforce.com, This is kind of a very odd looking URL, mainly because I'm using a free developer edition. But if it is your enterprise edition, you should be able to set your domain URLs as per your will and wish. Okay, so once you make sure that you have the domain URL set out here, the next thing to configure is your auth providers, which is your identity provider. So you just need to go into that search bar again and search for auth providers. So you just need to type in auth and select auth providers. And here you can see that Salesforce gives us a wonderful interface to configure auth providers. Alright, so I'll just show you how a new auth provider could be set up. Just click on this simple new button and it'll ask you what is your provider type. Now Salesforce provides a default set of preset providers, for example Facebook, Junrain, Salesforce, OpenID Connect, as well as Microsoft Access Control Service. So here we are trying to do social sign-on with Google, and Google is an OpenID Connect provider. So we need to select the OpenID Connect provider type, and the moment you select the provider type as OpenID Connect, Salesforce will auto show a lot of text boxes which ask you to fill in the name of the auth provider, the URL suffix, the consumer key, the secret, and so many things. And it's very easy to understand because you just need to concentrate on the text boxes that have the red bar, which says that they are the mandatory text boxes. So let me show you the Google auth provider, which I have already set up. Okay, go into Google. Okay, and click on edit. So if you see here, I have set the name as Google. It's not necessary that you need to put it as Google. It can be any name as per your will and wish. And the moment you actually do a tab, the URL suffix will be generated for you. And you need to provide in the consumer key and the consumer secret. Now, where do you get the consumer key and consumer secret from, right? Now, where the point from where you can generate this is from the Google Developers Console. So let me show you my Google Developers Console, and you just need to log in here, go to the credentials, and when you go into the credentials, you will have an option to create a new client ID, right? So if you just click on this new client ID, it will say what is the kind of web application. Is it a web application or a service account, or is it an installed desktop application that you're trying to access this OpenID information from? So here our case is Google and Salesforce. Salesforce is basically a web application. So you're going to select web application and go forward, and you again just these URIs also you can just give in some information. So right, so what I've done is once you save the new client ID information, you get this client ID and this client secret, right? So what you just need to do is copy and paste it up out here. Okay, nothing more to think on. Now, as I said, the OpenID Connect protocol works on the OAuth 2 framework. So OAuth 2 definitely needs the 3 endpoint URLs. Now, it is the authorization endpoint URL where you exchange the username and password, and what you get back in return is the authorization code. Now, that authorization code needs to be exchanged with the token endpoint URL of Google to get back an access token, and with that access token you will call the user info endpoint URL to collect the first name, last name, and email address, right? And where do you get these URLs from? Just Google it out. It's freely available out there, right? So nothing to think there. And then the next important thing you need to note here is on the default scopes. Now here, basically OpenID Connect is nothing but an OAuth 2 call with an OpenID scope in it, right? So the provider will understand that when the responses are being given back, it needs to include the OpenID information back in the response. So you need to make sure that this OpenID scope is actually added. If you don't add this, it is just treated as a normal OAuth flow, right? Now the next important thing is on the registration handler. Now registration handler is nothing but an Apex code that Salesforce will generate for you. You need not sit and develop this Apex code. Salesforce will generate a default template of the registration handler, and what you can do is get into that Apex code and refine the code as per your enterprise policies. For example, the way in which you let the users in, maybe it is based on the domain check, or maybe it is based on the geographical location check. So all those kind of tweakings is what you need to do in this Apex code. Now the next important thing is on the execute registration, as this needs to be the super admin user of your Salesforce org who can actually execute this Apex code, right? Okay, so that's it. You just need to save it up. So the moment you save this auth provider, what Salesforce would do is it will give you a set of URLs, right? Now these URLs are basically test initialization, test only initialization URL. You have the single sign-on initialization URL, the existing user linking URL, as well as the callback URL, right? And in order to make sure that your communication to Google, your authorization communication to Google works properly, you need to make sure that this callback URL is updated back into the Google client that you have actually generated up here. So this redirect URI needs to match the callback URL that you have specified in the auth provider, right? Now, what is the relevance of test-only initialization URL? This test-only initialization URL has to be used by the administrator or the developer who is actually configuring this. For example, myself, who is showing this demo to you, I need to check if this auth provider works or not, right? So I can use this link to do that. Now let's see how this thing basically works. So let me open up a Firefox session and paste this URL and hit enter. And what Salesforce should do is that Salesforce should automatically redirect me to Google, and right. So let me just remove all these things. Okay. So I need to give in my, so here I'm using my personal account for the demo sake. So password goes in and sign in, and the moment you sign into Google, Google will do the authorization and send back that OpenID information back to Salesforce. So here is the XML that you have got. Now we told it is a REST-like manner. Now REST-like is either XML or a kind of JSON. So here we got an XML response saying that, hey, the person who is trying to log in is Abhishek, right? And his Google Plus user ID is this 103426, and this is the plus Google Plus link for that particular user. And you have used OpenID Connect as your provider, and the full name of this person is this, Abhishek Shivasubramanian. The email information is abhi.ddr@gmail.com. So I have all the information of this user to do the authentication checks. Fantastic. Now this is exactly what a developer needs to test out. So if you get this XML back, it means your auth provider is ready to be wired, right? Okay. Now let me just take Google. Okay, log me out and close this Firefox. Okay, now let's also have a look into the registration handler. Now this XML, what is coming back, is actually sent into the registration handler Apex code, right? So let's look into what this Apex code looks like. All right. So here we have a very simple Apex class that is generated by Salesforce, and a basic registration handler Apex class has to implement the auth.registration handler. But don't worry about this. All this code will be written by Salesforce and will be given to you. So what you need to note here is the create user method. Now create user method will be invoked when a new user is trying to log in into your system, into Salesforce, basically in this demo. Now if a user is returning back, for example, maybe the second time he's trying to log in or third time he's trying to log in, the update user method will be automatically fired. So Salesforce knows which methods to invoke, with which methods to fire with respect to which kind of user who is coming in. So what I have written in the create user method is, I'm just checking for available users in the system with data.identifier. Now data.identifier, what is this data? Data is nothing but that XML record. So what all information did we have there? We had the ID, we had the first name, we had the email, we had the last name. So that ID is the identifier, data.identifier. So I'm checking if there is some user in my system who has this particular Google Plus user ID. If it is there, return back that user. If that user is not there, you please create a user out for me and assign this default profile. Set a user name. What all would you do manually to create a user in Salesforce is just coded out here. So I need to set the user's email, and where is the user's email coming from? It is there in the data.email. Where is the last name? It is there in the data.last name. So you can set all this information in the else part. This is what you call as the dynamic client registration logic, or the power of dynamic client registration using OpenID Connect. Now, okay, let's look into the update user. Now, what should we do when what is the relevance of using update user method? Update user method will be really relevant when you want to keep your user details, for example, the user details in Salesforce in sync with your social details. For example, myself, I could be changing my secondary email in my Google Plus. I could be, maybe I am changing my name slightly a bit. Maybe I just want to use Abhishek S instead of Abhishek Shivasubramanian. So if I want to keep those updations which I'm making in the social side back into the Salesforce, I can use this update user method. For example, you can say, okay, let's update the Google ID. Let's update the u.firstname equal to data.firstname. So you can actually make sure that the social details are in sync with the linked user in your Salesforce account. So this is a pretty straightforward, very simple Apex code. Even a newcomer could even easily code it up, right? Okay. So this is what we did actually. Now let's try out. So we are good with the test only initialization URL. We are also good with the registration handler code. So let's now try to wire this up. Okay, how do we wire this URL? When we actually are shown the Salesforce traditional login page, I want to have some kind of button which says login with Google, right? So how do you make all those things pop out there? You can easily do this in Salesforce with your my domain itself. Let's go back to my domain and select my domain. And here, since we have set the our Salesforce dev org with a domain name, a custom domain name, you will be able to see that there is a login page branding section available. Okay. Now, okay, hopefully the screen is refreshing. Okay, nice. So what you need to do here is just go into that login page branding, click edit, and what you would see in a very traditional fresh box, what you would see is only the login page would be checked out here. Okay, and what all auth providers that you have set in the auth providers screen will be shown as checkboxes here. So here we had set up the Google, right? So we need to bring that login with Google button in Salesforce homepage. So just make sure that this checkbox is checked and you just save it up. Okay. And now let's use this domain URL, which is Abhishek Subbu dev-ed, and I'll just try to use this in my fresh Firefox session. Okay, and I hit enter, and I'm just presented with the default Salesforce login page. But here you can see a difference. There is a Google button also out here, right? So the users are given two choices now. Either you can use your Salesforce username and password to log in, or you could use your Google credentials to log in. Okay, let's try out Google. Let's click this up, and we are redirected. Okay, and I given my Gmail, my Google username and password, sign in, and what I should see is I should be auto logged into Salesforce, and I should be landing into the dashboard. Okay, let's hope the demo works. Fantastic. Look at this. Look at the beauty of how seamlessly a user was able to get into the Salesforce dashboard with Google credentials. Isn't that awesome? I am just in love with this concept of OpenID and single sign-on. Right. Okay. So getting back into the presentation. So right, so our social sign-on with Google into Salesforce is done. So I hope you were able to digest this information, and I hope I've given you the best that I can. Right, so let's now move into the Q&A.
Thank you, Abhishek. It is a pleasure to have you on board. Thank you for such a wonderful session. Now, we are ready to address your questions. Feel free to shoot your questions. You may type in your questions using the questions feature on GoToWebinar.
All right,
so we have our first question coming in. It says, how does the identity provider understand if the client talks pure OAuth 2.0 or OpenID Connect?
Right. Okay, that's a wonderful question. How does the identity provider understand? Right. Now, it's basically with the default scopes. So as I said in the demo, if you include OpenID Connect in your default scope, the communication is considered as an OpenID Connect communication. And if that OpenID Connect scope is not there, it's considered as a straightforward OAuth 2.0 call.
Okay. Our question number 2. Why do we have a Salesforce as an auth provider in the out-of-the-box list of available auth providers?
Right. So, Salesforce right now, you can connect Salesforce orgs together either using OpenID Connect or as well as, because it is the Salesforce own platform, they give you the ability to just give in the URLs and not choose the path of OpenID Connect, and you can log into Salesforce with another Salesforce login. So it's just a different way to actually get authenticated and authorized. OpenID Connect is nothing but a different flavor of the authentication and of the auth provider. So again, with the auth providers, what you get is you can choose a lot of OpenID Connect protocol supporting providers. For example, like Google supports OpenID Connect, so you can enable social sign-on using Google. You can also enable social sign-on using Amazon. Amazon supports OpenID Connect. They also provide, they also act as an OpenID Connect provider. Also, PayPal is also an OpenID Connect provider, so you can even log in with PayPal. So OpenID Connect now all the trend right now which is happening is a lot of companies are adopting OpenID Connect protocol into their practices, and now we also can maybe sometime in the future, but not too much in the future. Maybe next year or 2 years down the line, we'll have most of the companies having login with my company kind of a facility in using the OpenID Connect protocol.
Thank you, Deepak. Hope you had more clarity on that. Moving on to the next question. Can Salesforce be configured as an OpenID Connect provider?
Fantastic. That's an awesome question. Salesforce can be configured to act as an OpenID Connect provider using the concept of connected apps. So the same thing that works with Auth2 calls. Basically, if you have worked with Force.com Canvas also, you would have seen that we configure a connected app and then use the client ID and the client secret generated from that connected app to do auth calls, right? So even Salesforce can be converted into that OpenID Connect provider to act as a OpenID Connect provider.
Thank you, Erin. Our next one would be, can we also have two auth providers set up at the same time? I mean, give options to the users to select from either Google or Facebook, etc.
Yes, this is absolutely possible. You can connect you can configure as many auth providers as possible. But right now, in your question, Facebook is right now not using is not yet on the OpenID Connect board. So maybe sometime in the future, if Facebook also uses OpenID Connect, you can have different buttons, just like we had Google. We also can have the Facebook button, or maybe your Amazon button, the LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever it is, when they come into the OpenID Connect board. Right.
Okay. Our next would be, do we know how many providers support OpenID Connect?
Right. I guess I answered this question earlier. Right now, as per my knowledge, Google supports OpenID Connect. Amazon and PayPal, as well as Salesforce, also supports OpenID Connect.
Right. Crystal on that. Next, can we have any links for us to understand and read through on OpenID Connect?
Right. So there is a website called as nat.sakimura.org, which basically has a lot of information around OpenID Connect protocol. What is OpenID Connect? How does the protocol suite look like? What all can you do to get into the OpenID Connect board? And a very, very simple beginner level explanation on top of the OpenID Connect. So I have found it really useful, that particular site. And any other sites. We'll also see that if we can write some blogs or something like that on top of the OpenID Connect from a very beginner standpoint, how enterprises can consume OpenID Connect, transform into an OpenID Connect provider, or use have your client application as an OpenID Connect client. That can also be done, right?
Okay, our last question of the day. What all are the scopes supported by OpenID Connect providers?
Right. So maybe I can just just switch the browser and show you the default scopes that you can actually use. This is the site that I was talking about, the nat.sakimura.org. So here I have found that you can use OpenID as a default scope, which we were using in our demo. And then you can use the profile is another supported scope in the OpenID Connect world. Email is supported. Address is supported, so you can bring back address details and also your phone details. For example, if you want to do your user authentication checks based on the phone numbers or the kind of phone numbers that come in, that also you can do, right? So this site is really will be really handy when you work on the OpenID Connect, right?
Thanks, Abhishek, and thank you folks for your precious time. Before I end the webinar, I would like to remind you that we would be at Dreamforce this time. More insights through his OpenID Connect with single sign-on session. So do catch us if you're at San Francisco this time. Any more queries will be taken offline. Reach us at social medias or you can mail us at services@suyati.com. A small request, we'd like to ask each of you to remain with us a few tiny minutes longer and complete our feedback. So once again, thanking you all for your time. Have a great day.